Hey, what's going on, everybody? I hope everyone is well out there today. I want to talk about something that I ordered at the very beginning of February. And as I record this, we are in the middle of March right now. But I finally received it, though it came a little earlier than I expected, truth be told. Now that is my Davinci Studio Edition dongle with the Davinci Resolve Speed Editor tool that they came out with recently and are offering as a package when you upgrade to the Studio version, still right now as I record this video. Now that may change in the near future, but as of mid-March 2021 you can still get that deal. So I have a few things I want to say about both Davinci Studio and the Speed Editor, and decided that I was going to break the subject into two videos, one on each topic. This video is going to tell you about my top 5 factors behind why I chose to get my Davinci Studio license, and part 2, or the second video, is all about my experience with the Speed Editor over the last few days of getting a chance to use it, and if I've decided to keep it, plus what I like about it. So if you're interested in that video, then click up here somewhere. I don't know where that thing pops up. Otherwise, I want to inform those who may be on the fence about upgrading to the Studio version of Davinci why I decided to, and why now is the perfect time to do it, in my opinion. So let's get to my top 5 reasons that I upgraded to Davinci Studio.
DNA made from Nikon Z chromosomes, homie. I guess my secret's out and now you know me.
Alright, reason number 1. So, I wanted the Studio version for the video decoding capabilities versus the free version. In the Studio version for decoding videos, I can set it to use my pretty powerful NVIDIA RTX 2060 Super GPU, freeing up my AMD Ryzen 7 3700X for other processes, which makes the editing process that much faster, streamlined, and efficient. Now when I use the free version, I have to admit that because my CPU is pretty powerful, I didn't often have bottleneck issues or drop frames or stuff like that, but I also didn't really put it through the ringer oftentimes with difficult tasks. However, more and more, I'm starting to challenge the computer when increasing the workload with more effects or overlays over 4K footage, color grading and such, and it would on occasion cause a little bit of interruption in playback and buffering the timeline. And that's because I'm asking my CPU to do most, if not all, the work, and not utilizing the full potential of the system that I built not long ago, you know what I'm saying? So now with the Studio version, I do not have any of these kind of issues at all. But this will also depend on your particular needs, keep in mind, and what kind of video production you intend to use Davinci for. If you're talking about simple edits and you have a reasonably fast computer, then you could surely get away with the free version. And I did for many years using it with my laptop. But with more intricate edits and effects, as well as like different codecs that your cameras may record with, for example, like my NX500 that uses H.265, now the Studio version is really much better at giving you control over how your computer will process these types of edits. And since I built my desktop about 8 months ago, I wanted to take full advantage of the hardware that I chose for my build. And that means that I can use my graphics card to help run the program a lot smoother, improving my workflow and streamlining the processing capabilities, all with one simple option of choosing to use my GPU in the decode options of the preferences settings. Now it's a small adjustment, but it makes a huge difference to your working efficiency, and it allows me to take full advantage of the money I spent on my computer build. Now the second reason I had is also kind of related to the first in some ways, and along the same lines of relegating tasks to my computer. That is that I can also set the output or rendering to be controlled by my GPU through the GPU Accelerated Encoding. Now what that means is that when I render the video, I can select my GPU to do the rendering process, and because I have a very powerful CPU, I get a fast render regardless. But when I timed it on a few of my video renders, the GPU was kind of always a little faster. Now in my case, it cut the render time by about 20 to 25%, but that'll always depend on your setup, of course. In your case, it might be significantly more. I don't know. But in any circumstance, no matter how you look at it, it makes rendering much faster, and that is always good to get the content out more quickly. And those time savings over time will add up to a lot less waiting around. So if you're somewhat impatient like me and have the capability to go faster, then this is a nice streamlined time saver for sure. Okay then, the third reason I wanted Davinci Studio, and for me was one of the best features in my opinion for my particular use, was the ability to super scale the footage before upscaling to 4K if I decide to shoot in 1080p. Now that's a mouthful, I know, but what that means essentially is that if you look at the free version, you can upscale your footage from 1080, let's say, to 4K, and if I'm honest, it does a pretty decent job of that. But if you're more of a stickler for resolution and quality like I am, you can do better by super scaling your footage before upscaling it, and you'll see a much better result with your footage in 4K once it's been upscaled and rendered. Here, let me show you. Now, this is an example of a clip that has been upscaled versus one that has been super scaled and then upscaled. Now, I think the difference is very noticeable in my opinion. You see, for me, when I first started doing YouTube, I thought about filming everything in 4K because, well, I could, I guess. But that, of course, limited me to only a few cameras instead of all the ones that I own. Now, the other thing is, and I'm not 100% sure about this, so don't quote me, but I have heard that YouTube's algorithm will have a higher likelihood to promote your video if you upload them in 4K. Now, the obvious issue with 4K is that it takes a mad amount of storage, and I'm sure that most people watch in 1080s anyways, right? So why even bother, you might be asking yourself. And another thing for me, at least referencing my NX500, is that my 4K shoots a crop of 1.5 times, and so does my Nikon D7500. My only full sensor 4K camera is my Z50, and I want to be able to use whatever camera, and not just my Z50. So for the sake of saving on storage and the desire to shoot with all my cameras like I'm doing today, for example, which is to say that I'm shooting with cameras that I'm using for the first time for YouTube, but I'm recording in 1080 and super scaling this footage to 4K. And by the way, if you're curious, just try and guess what cameras I'm shooting with, just for shits and giggles, and I'll reveal that at the end of part 2. Davinci Studio allows me to use these cameras and still upload in super scale 4K, all the while saving a ton of storage space and qualifying for the algorithm bump on YouTube. Also, there is another advantage to uploading in 4K that I have learned. Now, YouTube uses two different kinds of codecs for the videos that they host on their servers. They use one that's called AVC1, which people like me would get who aren't big YouTubers, that'll upload in any resolution that isn't 4K, and the far superior VP09, which they designate for big YouTube channels that get crazy views and those who upload in 4K. So, if I want a better codec, which I do, then I personally have to upload in 4K. And you can see that here in the stats for nerds section that I'm showing you right now, comparing two of my videos that were uploaded in 1080 and 4K respectively. So for small YouTubers, 4K is a way to get the superior quality reserved for big YouTube channels, and super scaling is a way for me to take as much advantage of that codec and upscale into a better resolution. So my fourth reason for wanting the studio version was the effects. Now, I'm not going to spend a ton of time talking about this because I haven't even begun to scratch the surface of what I now have available to me with the studio version, but I can say with certainty that there are a ton more effects and transitions and titles and all that in the studio version, which hopefully will make the videos more interesting for you viewers, so you keep watching for longer than my analytics indicate that you're likely to currently watch for. And if you are a DaVinci master, which I am not, and you are great with the Fusion page, which I'm not really, then you can work these kinds of things out for yourself in the free version, but it's time consuming. And not only do you have to spend time doing it in Fusion, but you will also have to spend time learning how to do it. Now, don't get me wrong, I love Fusion and do want to get better at it for many good reasons, but it's nice to have a lot of great effects that are easy to add and look real slick just by dragging and dropping them into the timeline. So the effects are dope for show and crazy plentiful, at least for my needs. The fifth reason I wanted the studio version is for the noise cancellation feature. Now, I gotta show you this because the image will tell the story way better than I ever could. Now, here's a clip that I took in low light, obviously, for one of my other comparison videos that is a very high ISO shot for the camera that I was using. Now, it's obviously a very noisy image and in my opinion unusable, except for demonstration purposes, like I'm trying to show you right now. So if I go to the color page and drop the noise cancellation feature over the node, just like this here, and just mess around real quick with the settings, I can totally change the shot to one that is not only usable, but unbelievable as far as before and after goes. Now I don't know, maybe you're not as impressed, but I was blown away by how good that works. I remember with the free version countless times that I wanted badly to use this feature, but of course the free version doesn't allow you to. So for me in particular, since I do not have any full frame cameras yet, one of the issues I can have when filming anything in low light with my APS-Cs is the limitation on the low light capabilities of these cameras. Now they can be okay in some conditions, but certainly no Sony a7S III or equivalent full frame in many other more challenging light. So if I have to use high ISO, I'd love to be able to clean it up a little and make it more usable footage. And without going out and investing thousands in new full frame camera right now, I can very easily improve the footage I have from the cameras I already own. I think the results from this tool are incredible, really. And after trying it out when getting the studio version, better than I even thought possible. So I'm going to add a sixth reason for the upgrade to Davinci Studio version as kind of a bonus, and it definitely deserves mentioning. First, the fact that they give a very powerful free version to anyone that wants one is incredible. I mean, the free version is ridiculously good and can be found for a lot of people's uses, including mine. But the studio version is so reasonably priced at $295 for what they provide, and is a lifetime subscription that applies to all future updated versions. I mean, come on now. In a day and age where you have to pay for everything, this kind of altruism from a company is unheard of, and I'm more than pleased to take advantage of the offer as well as support that kind of company philosophy. Which brings me to an even bigger bonus, talking about bonuses. Now I've been wanting the studio version for years, but I've always simply stuck to the free version because, well, I mean, I was happy with it and it did what I needed at the time. This year though, as of filming this on March 17th, there has been an offer out for months now by Blackmagic Design that makes the upgrade a no-brainer, man. I just received about a week ago my studio dongle that I ordered on February 2nd, like I mentioned before, and the reason it took so long for me to get it is because I also got the Davinci Resolve Speed Editor that is in very short supply and back-ordered everywhere. So it took about 6 weeks or so for me to finally get my orders that I bought from B&H, one of my favorite stores, by the way, along with Adorama, but I finally got it. Now actually, I originally thought I would have to wait longer, probably until April or so to get it, but it came in sooner than I expected, so I'm super happy about that, no doubt. Now this speed editor itself sells for $300, man, but if you order it now with the studio version, you get it free, or vice versa. Basically, the studio version comes with the speed editor, or the speed editor comes with the studio version, however you want to look at it. So that's all for my part 1 video about the main reasons I wanted to upgrade to Davinci Studio. There are probably even 10 more reasons I could come up with off the top of my head, but for the sake of brevity, I'll just discuss the main ones that stood out for me. For the speed editor video, that's part 2, and it's available right now, so go check it out. Now I hope you liked the video and got some information from it. If you made it this far, I appreciate you. Please give it a thumbs up, comment and subscribe and all that bullshit, and I'll see you maybe even soon. And remember, if you want to learn about my initial experience with the speed editor, then be sure to check that out right now. Peace.